I'm here with my son. Just happy to see him. Happy that he's once again decided to spend his birthday with me. So, Mr. Jawara, what do you want to say on your birthday?
To the question, I suppose, we all know there's no perfect methodology to parenting. I think it's a little pushing and pulling for the most part. As far as my experience with both my mom and my father, it's probably more pushing than pulling in the early stages, which is good. There's so many factors, both internal and external, many of which you can't control. So the idea is to just give your kids a foundation to explore and experience the world on their own. And I think in that regard, my parents have done an exceptional job. It's difficult though. There's a lot of patience required. I mean, many are surprised how I turned out because I was definitely a bit rambunctious when I was younger. But I think everybody has their own path to adulthood. And what I told my mom earlier when we were eating is that, she could have very well put me in a track to, to be conventionally successful. But she allowed all of us, me in particular, to find my voice, to find my way, and to ultimately get the most out of life and pursue what makes me happy. So, in that regard, I think she's been very successful. I'm not perfect. I've obviously made several mistakes, but mistakes are generally how you learn the most. So I just am appreciative of her resilience, her commitment to staying on top of me, even when I am on many occasions resisted her approach. And lastly, much of what parenting is not so much giving instruction, but it's modeling. It's demonstrating the qualities and virtues that you would like to see within your child. And she's been a tremendous model, not only as a parent, but as a citizen in our community. And really, putting us squarely in the center of her community and letting us see the world through the eyes of people who are very intelligent, who are open-minded, who want to cultivate this sense of culture and understanding and being a part of the world that you exist in. And at least, anyways, that's what I've taken from kind of my experience as her child. It's just about being a part of your community, having a sense of pride, a sense of history, investing wholly in whatever it is that you set out to do. But also, with your pursuit, maintaining a sense of humility and compassion. So,
I didn't pay him.
It's like a ride. There's several times where we were at each other's throats. We didn't get along. We weren't happy with each other. I think it was, for both of us, it was us trying to be understood. I'm trying to understand this is who I am, and she's saying this is what I'm trying to give you. And occasionally there's a delta in between those two things. But once you sit back, you see the commonality, you see what the purpose was, what the intention was. And at least in my regard, it's worked out. And in my sister's regard, I told her earlier, to her credit, she has 3 amazing children. And the only way you can have amazing children is if you have amazing parents. I don't think one can come without the other. And so I'm just thankful to be her son, for all the experiences that she's given me, that she's some forced me to have, but another long she just took me along with her, and my sisters and all over the world. That's about it. I mean, there's obviously, I can go on and on and on about all the things that have been done since 1989 to 2019.
Oh gosh.
but but ultimately, my mom's a storyteller, and she's put us in a lot of situations where there's plenty of stories to tell.
Definitely.
So I will hold on to these stories, and I will pass them on, and when I have kids, I will create adventures so they have stories to tell as well. Because if there's one thing that our family always has together, it's an adventure, one way or the other. And sometimes it's stressful, but at the end we generally laugh about it because it's always, it's always fun. I mean, we have a good sense of humor in this family, and so even in our most dire moments, we tend to laugh about it.
Yeah.
We could be at the edge of a cliff and we might laugh before we fall off.
So I just want to point out, Jaja will say that there are things I made him do when he was younger. Like he often, he's not going to tell it now, that I threw him to swim with the sharks when, I forget how old you were.
I wasn't that young. I was
You're
was it Mexico?
School? Yeah, Mexico,
Yeah.
when we went to Mexico. But he has also pushed me to do things that I kind of wanted to do but wouldn't do. Like
Skydiving.
Yeah, skydiving, jumping out of a plane. I thought I was losing my mind. Why am I having this kid paid all of this money for us to jump out of a plane where we could die? But it was really fun.
It was amazing.
I think, yeah, it was amazing.
It was amazing. I'll definitely do it again.
So I think as he has matured and gotten older, there have been things that we've pushed each other to do that have just been fun. And like today, being at Hope Gardens, parks we've spent time at different parks in different places in the world. And so it's good that we're doing that today.
I want to kind of expand on that. There's an origin to everything, obviously. And so growing up, one of my chores was to water the garden. And I remember as a kid, we actually have pictures. I think we're butt naked in our backyard watering the garden. But that's something I did. And then obviously when we moved to East Oakland, I did the same thing. And I told her, it's funny, chores are an interesting thing because I would give a lot to be able to water a garden regularly now. Because I remember doing it when I got older, and I just enjoyed being in the garden, watering the plants, being around the plants. And, naturally that has transferred to loving gardens, loving parks, loving nature in general. And that's something that certainly, it's not just from her, but it's passed down from her father to her, and then she passed that down to me. And that's how anything happens in families. There's traditions, there's habits, there's culture that's passed down, and the culture binds us all together. No matter how far we are, because at certain points we were all over the place. Germany, Paris, St. Croix, and then California. And yet we've always maintained that same connection. Whenever we come together, we always immediately laughing and just,
being silly.
Yeah, being clowns.
Yeah. Last thing, can you think of, or what do you, so far, what has been your best birthday?
Ooh. That's tough.
Okay. I was just trying to think of all the different ways we've celebrated your birthday, and one of the things we've done since you were in, I think, high school is we would go for a walk, we'd go to the movies, would visit a garden, whether it's Lake Merritt or the Rose Garden or someplace where we live. But you've also had very varied birthdays requests. You were not as elaborate as your sisters, but you had some, and I just wondered if there was one that stands out in your memory.
Well, there's one, and it stands out for a lot of different reasons. I graduated 8th grade, so part of that, for graduation and my birthday, we went to Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I remember this trip for several reasons, good and bad. Number one, first time I ever got sunburned in my life. I think a few days into the trip, I got a terrible ear infection, and spent half the trip kind of agonizing, my ear. And then we went to Chichen Itza, which is in complete contrast to Cancun, which is touristy, just typical place you go on vacation. And it was it was wonderful. You know, it was just a beautiful, the pyramids, the layout, the history, the advancement of people from, you know, thousands of years ago, or 1,500 years ago, whatever the case may be. And I just remember the trip, you know, for that reason, and also just, it's so easy to get frustrated on vacation when, like, you know, it didn't go perfectly as planned. I mean, I got an ear infection and I was kind of out of it for a lot of it, and she was very patient and caring, and we still managed to do all the things that we said we wanted to do, despite the fact. And, you know, I can't say that's my best birthday, but that's one that definitely stands out for those reasons.
Plus, it was you and I alone.
Yeah,
I think for one of the first times.
Yeah, it was for a week.
Yeah.
You know, which my sisters again weren't happy about. Anything they're not included in, they're definitely not happy about. But you know, I was 13 years old. I'm going on 14.
Yeah.
Oh, and that graduation, by the way, I got left by both parents. They both thought, you know, so my parents are not together. And so they both assumed that one of them took me home to my graduation party, and neither one of them took me home to my graduation party. So I was at school, and my friend Lazarus, his father actually stayed with me, and he was like, "Where are your parents?" I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I thought they were someone was supposed to take me home." And you know, I remember Baba coming back to get me, and then and I was the last person at my own graduation party because I got left. So that was all 8th grade.
That's because you're running around taking pictures with all
What are
your
you supposed
friends.
to do with your graduation? No, just so, hey, I graduated, let's bye you guys. You know, they, you know, somebody didn't have enough patience. I'm not saying it was Baba, I'm not saying it was you, I'm saying one of the two.
The fact is you got to your graduation party.
Yeah, I did.
And you didn't get abandoned.
Yeah, I did get abandoned. It happened. It didn't happen for an extended period of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 decades, and every decade is just something different. You know, from being a baby to touching the world for the first time, and then your second decade is a self-identification.
You're stepping
and
into.
Your third decade is really the reflection of those first 2 decades and deciding kind of, you know, that final route into adulthood. So it's been a very, very good 30 years. I have very few regrets and probably even fewer complaints. And I know I'm blessed to not only have my mother, and my mother being Opal, but also to have my father and my sisters. My immediate family's truly exceptional. And I've coined myself the gray sheep, but I don't think anybody else would coin me that. I just
don't think
feel
so.
like the bar is very high, and I'm still aiming for it.